Hello and welcome to Stampscapes Friday Night Live. We're going to do a test here. I'm looking for my re-inker. Using the vinyl holographic sticker paper. Printable vinyl holographic sticker paper, that is. Printable being the key word, if you haven't seen these videos before. And we're going to be using a water-based Brilliance white pigment ink on it, along with some StazOn impressions. Okay, now I'm going to be trying something. We're going to be using a holographic printable vinyl that has this color patterning to it and shimmer. And what I want to do is I want to stamp out some of these images right over the top of it. I'm going to be using my old stamp in the hand mounted versions of these because I couldn't find my own unmounted versions, but these are the old mounts from a stamp in the hand, believe it or not. And this is a little piece of paper that goes underneath just as a little aside here with that impression right on there. It's what a stamp in the hand used to use, which is the company that I used to work for before I started my own company when I graduated from college, but that's a different story. Okay, so I'm going to be using a lot of ink on this, and what we're going to do is I want to stamp this out, okay, but I don't want to have all this shimmer showing right through my imagery here. So what we have to do is we have to block it out using some white pigment ink, but of course I don't want to block out everything. That's defeating the point of having this shimmery texture down here. So I need to stamp everything out first on this vinyl, and then I need to block it out using the white pigment ink, and then I need to stamp right over the top of the white pigment ink back in with that imagery. If that'll work or not, that's the test. So we're going to see how that goes. I think I'll go with a dye-based ink for my initial impressions. Maybe I should go with something lighter now that I think about it. Let's go with a... Oh, I just need to be able to vaguely see the image. This is going to be a little bit too light, so I think this one right here. Hello, Michelle! Happy Friday night here, whatever time it is for you. Good to see you. Thanks for joining in. All right, so I need to do this reasonably, I don't know, reasonably fast. Not fast by like a 5-minute card standard or something like this, but I need to do this before my kid gets back from the gym, which is like an hour, because I have to have dinner ready for them. All right, so what we're doing is we're stamping out this platform here. We called it Marble Platform. Hello, Linda and Sandy. Hello, if anyone else is on. Okay, so this printable vinyl, it accepts water-based media, okay? But it also, I found, accepts things like oil-based pigment inks, like, you know, your VersaFine Clair or something like that. Shockingly so. I didn't think it would dry on this, but I've done tests on printable vinyls, and printable vinyls just seem to take everything. I love this material, okay? Comes in all kinds of different patterns and stuff, and I find that it's reasonably inexpensive for what you're getting in terms of the paper. I guess because it's meant to be printed on, you know, it's not like a really thick cardstock or something like that. So, you know, things that people are printing out, they don't want to have, you know, like something really pricey, like $1 a sheet or something like this. So I find the printable vinyls to be, you know, reasonably price in terms of the packs and whatnot. Again, for what you're getting, you know, I've seen very expensive foils before that are like $1 each for a 8.5 by 11. So I find this stuff to be, you know, reasonable. Okay, and there's a lot of different types out there. If you're getting this, I always say this because we have to in these videos, because it could be the first video someone's seen from me, but with this technique that we'll be doing on here, it's the printable holographic vinyl. Okay, there's a lot of holographic vinyls out there too, but they're more like cardstocks, okay? This one has a surface on it that allows for it to take and dry, adhere, whatever, your water-based media, okay? But again, you know, I don't know. That's what it says on the packaging, because it's not really designed to be stamped on, so... You know, they're largely pointing out the types of inks that will dry on this material using home, printers of various sorts. Okay, so I think it's usually for inkjet printers in particular, which I guess means that those inkjet printers are water-based. So sometimes on the packaging it'll say dye-based inks, use dye-based inks only, and what they're talking about is a dye-based home printer ink. Okay, all right, so I'm getting this placed. I haven't used these really large columns in a very long time. I hope I get it reasonably vertical. I don't always, and I just try to kind of obscure that fact with some coloring later. Sometimes it's wobbling one way or another. If it's wobbling, it's Rowan's. If it's straight up and down, it's new construction. Okay, now that one right there, I kind of stamped it a little bit high. There's a little bit of a gap. But again, I don't know if it's really going to matter. And remember, I'm not stamping this in blues. These are going to be covered up with white ink and stamped over the top of it with black, okay? This is just kind of for placement, okay? So let's see here, okay. Since I got that other one a little bit high, I guess I'll need to go a little bit high with this one. Now maybe I went too high with this one, being the last one. I didn't think I was, having a little gap down there, so let's see how this goes. Yeah, that one's a little bit higher right there. I have a little bit more of a space in between. But remember, I'm going to be stamping all this over again, so these are just kind of, rough guidelines. Because I didn't get it perfect, so they're rough guidelines instead of like exact guidelines, which would have been better. Don't sweat it, in other words, okay? I don't do techniques that are kind of like unforgiving, first of all, because I don't want to, use techniques like that myself, so I just kind of avoid them. I do the types of techniques where if stuff like that happens, you can just, deal with it later and, hopefully not even see it. Okay. All right. Let me see what this is called. I think this is called the entablature. I used to know the, kind of the anatomy of architecture, Roman architecture and all that type of thing. Let me see. Entablature, or was it pediment? I can't remember at this point in time. It's been years. Okay. Okay. These are a stamp in hand, but they're all available in the Stampscapes Greco-Roman sheets. Just a little trivia, but I've hidden all kinds of little notations in the texturing in there, in the patterns within the designs. I don't remember exactly, but I think this right here, can you see that right there? It looks like an X, but because I don't want it so obvious, but then it goes like this right here. See this. So it's like a K, N. For my name, Kevin Nakagawa, by the way. Okay, so that is just kind of built right on top. So we have this. So this is going to be blocked out right there. And then we're going to stamp out one of the new figures here like this. Okay, so she's going to be behind these columns right here. So I'm just going to stamp this right over the top of this. One of the new Nature Sheet 30 set designs. Hello, Jeannie. Jeannie, people check out Jeannie's usage of the new imagery. I take it you posted those on Facebook. Jeannie IM'd me those, and they looked amazing as always. But these types of figures are really fun to use. They add kind of a different, I don't know, what would you call it? Kind of, I don't know, whatever flavor, kind of look to imagery rather than say, what we're normally doing in scenic stamping using animals and, I don't know, other types of people and stuff. So what was this period again? It was Renaissance, was it, Jeannie? I don't know. You reminded me last time. I forgot already. Let's see. Hello, CM Hawkins and Nicole. Good to see you. Hello in Perth, Western Australia. I always ask you, but what time is it there for you? Okay, let's, all right, now maybe I'm, okay. This is pretty closely trimmed here, so I'm trying to see where I have a little stain on my tack and peel here, but I think it'd be roughly like right here. Okay, I don't want her hid in the columns. Okay, now I'm stamping it right over the top of this column here. Again, because, you know what I mean? I'm going to be blocking all this out anyway, so it doesn't matter. Because I'm going to be stamping this entire composition again on this paper here. So, all right. So, and that column will be in front of her. Maybe we'll put a moon right here or something of that sort. Or I think I was going to stamp a quote right in here. I don't know. We'll think about the quote later, though. Sometimes you can stamp your composition around kind of a theme or words or something like that. And, yeah, most of the times for me, it's, I don't know if it's an afterthought because I do have to leave space for it in there. But a lot of times I'm just deciding what I want to add into the, I should have done, I see we're going to stamp this again, so don't put that away. Let's get all this ready to go here. Okay. The one thing about these columns and whatnot, it's a good idea to have them, unless you're doing ruins, it's a good idea to have them reasonably straight up and down. Now see, with all of my other stuff, we're not doing that type of careful placement where, you know what I mean, we're lining things up exactly, but I'm not using a positioner or something like that. You know, you could, and that would be probably better. But these ones, you know, when it comes to architectural types of things we're talking about, you know, there's a lot of straight lines in that. So, which is exactly what I try to avoid with nature designs. And plus, you can overlap, you know, a lot, 1/8 of an inch, 1/4 of an inch, whatever, 1/2 inch sometimes to an inch. And it's fine. It makes scenes look better. But, you know, with something like, you know, walls and columns, you don't want that column to be going up 1/2 inch and that type of thing. So it's a little bit of a different spirit. But I wouldn't say it's hard to do or anything like that. But if this was being done on something like cardstock, we might have to be doing some masking and whatnot. 12:42 p.m. Got it. I love that. I love that the web, you know, that net is out there. It always, it's still, it's still interesting to me that I don't know, with technology and whatnot, we can be live streaming over, you know, whatever, all over the world. You know, with just this, you know, for me, it's just this little, you know, I don't know, whatever this is, 13-inch laptop computer and a camera. Very thankful, though, and thankful to YouTube and other types of platforms like this that allow us to do that. Okay, so what I'm going to do here, I'm not going to try, I'm going to be blocking out this imagery, okay? But I'm not going to be so careful about it where I'm just going over those particular images. I could, if, you know, by just like masking off something like this and just going right up the column, but I want there to be some atmosphere in this, so I'm going to be putting clouds behind here. So it's largely going to be just me kind of blotting out most of those image areas and then just going for a, you know, a decent field of some clouds rising in the background, okay? So this is going to be a decent amount of white pigment ink here, okay? I guess in theory I didn't really need to stamp this out, but I guess I did need to know how far this figure was going to be up on this piece, but I don't know. No big deal. I mean, it doesn't take long to stamp these images out anyway. All right, so anyway, has everyone been stamping here at all this week? Did anyone stamp out any Valentine's Day cards or receive a hand stamp card? I guess, I don't know. I guess you guys are the stampers though, so maybe you wouldn't be receiving one. A handmade, you know, card that is. Okay, so going up here like this. Okay, so we can see the image right through there. Okay, so we're going to have to add some opacity to it. I don't need to block it out completely though. You know what I mean? Just as long as it's fairly light, because I'm not going to match these things up exactly when I try to stamp on top of there. I'm not that, you know, good of a, you know, eyeball, you know, kind of placing by eye, positioning individual. So it just needs to be blocked out a decent amount. Plus, okay, I'm going to be adding in colored pencil work and shading all these architectural elements. So with colored pencils, so I need to get a decent layering of this pigment ink down here, so that's the thing that's going to accept the colored pencil. You're not going to be able to use colored pencil directly onto this type of paper. You know what I mean? First of all, it wouldn't really show up very well because it's, you know, got this, you know, kind of glittery surface like this. Okay. And plus it's like the smooth, you know, coated surface, so that's not, you know, best for something that, you know, a type of medium that's going to require some tooth to it. So add a decent amount, so it's not just about coverage, but it's about a little bit of thickness here. Hello, Laura D. Only store-bought cards received here. Well, you're the makers out there, I guess. You know, yeah. It's you know, it's the thought that counts. And you know what I mean? Most people, I don't know, you know, most people. I'm not talking about our crafting friends, but you know what I mean. Most people just don't make stuff, unless you just happen to be, you know, around a bunch of people like that. Like none of my one of my friends crafts, okay, but you know, most of them, you know, did not. Or do not. Okay, so adding this in, you know what? One of these days I should use a brayer for this, you know, just roll into this with a rubber brayer and just go like this, if there's large fields like that. I'll give it a shot one of these days. Okay, if you get kind of like little linty balls of pigment ink on here, just kind of wipe it off like that. It comes right off. Okay, so adding this pigment ink like this, Brilliance ink specifically, down on to the printable vinyl, this dries really fast, okay? Oh, I don't know, that's white on my fingers. It's because I just added, okay? If I let it sit here for like a minute, okay, it's going to be reasonably dry. But okay, but the big point is it's not just wiping off like it would if I did it onto a holographic foil, which the pigment ink Brilliance ink will dry on there, but it won't adhere. Okay. Hello, Margaret. Not a stamper, but love watching you. Thanks for watching, Margaret. Maybe we'll make you, you know, we'll talk you into stamping here. If you ever feel inclined, but thanks so much for checking it out, though. I'll talk about all the basics. That's why I always like talking about the basics, because, you know, not everyone that maybe watches these videos or stampers or crafters or whatnot, you know. Over the years, a lot of times, you know, most stampers or crafters, you know, are women, okay? And I've gotten like some guys stamping before, you know, just because they show up at a convention or something like that with the spouse, you know, and they walk the show in. They walked a 50 show booth, you know, 50 booth show, you know, and they're done in 10 minutes. You know, the guys, you know, if anything, they're carrying their bags, you know, their spouse's bags around or something like that. But a lot of times I end up with those guys, you know, because you know, they're like, you know, they might be, you know, enjoy watching, you know, something of, you know, nature or the outdoors being done or something like that. But sometimes, you know, after like one or two shows, it's they start stamping or something like that, or they've, their wife comes back and yeah, okay, she's gonna watch. She wants to get some Stampscapes, okay. Um, Maybe because she's noticed that her spouse was able to hold his attention. So a lot of times what happens is he has been sitting there watching the demos for 2 hours, and his wife's enjoying herself, not having to worry about him kind of tagging along and being bored. She's parked him just like some parents used to park their kids. And then, so he's the one that ends up saying, okay, hey, you got to get this image and this image or something like that. So it's probably like the first time he's ever kind of suggested any kind of crafting item to them. And sometimes, like, after, I don't know what happens. They get home and she saw 50 different booths and, she was watching, whatever, 30 different demonstrations and did some make and takes it like, you know what I mean? But he saw the demonstration. So maybe, when she says, like, hey, how did you use this stamp right here? Or, how did you apply things? Well, oh, here's how you do it. And then he sits down. He's got to show her. They got to demonstrate, That's how some guys have gotten into stamping before, that 1% of all, whatever, rubber stampers. Some of them got into it over the years, I'm talking about. All right, so, this would be kind of interesting if I left this area up here for the quote stamp, It seems like a perfect spot right there, doesn't it? If only that was a little bit lower, though, that would have been better than being right up there. But I don't know. It's an option for that quote, as long as it'll fit in there. Okay, let's see here. Can you use alcohol markers on that substrate? You can, but I want to use the alcohol markers on top of the Brilliance ink, okay? And alcohol markers they're transparent too. So that's the reason why I'm blocking out here, is because if you stamp on some of these surfaces, it's kind of interesting to me that how I've been using all these other types of surfaces, like the holographic cardstocks, the starry holographic printable vinyl. So suddenly something like this, which normally, when I was just using white paper, if I use something like this, I'm thinking, oh my God, that is so crazy and such a loud surface. But now by kind of, contrast, this is now kind of a mellow surface now. So what I'm getting at is if you use, alcohol inks, like transparent inks on something like this, that has all of these inherent colors, like that, you might not be able to see it very well, okay? If used directly on here. I think I've used some alcohol inks directly on this, and while alcohol and this water-based pigment ink are two different, whatever, binders, foundations, or whatever, and they shouldn't really mix, but just being that you're kind of going over this surface right here with a wet medium, it can remove from that surface like that, okay? But let's say you just wanted to stamp something. You had a really bold image and you just wanted to stamp it on there with whatever, I guess dye-based ink if you're going to color it with an alcohol ink, just so it doesn't smear it and whatnot. I guess you can do certain things on there. You might even be able to do some kind of blending types of effects on this surface. But this surface here, it really is meant to dry things really fast. And so I'm not sure what type of kind of effect you would get from the use of that alcohol ink on there. You know what I mean? Like if you wanted to do some blending, or if you wanted certain types of textures, or if you wanted like really, really smooth texture. I don't know if you can really get it. I haven't tested that type of, I haven't done like in-depth testing with it before like that. All right, so adding this in here. Okay, now I've added it mostly around my image. I think I need to go a little bit more opaque. or moving it towards opacity in some of these areas, because I just don't think I'm going to be able to register, just eyeball registering those images on there that well. So if I block out that background a little bit more, where it's a little bit more obscured, it won't be so obvious when I do kind of miss, that placement on there. I'm hoping that when I do stamp those over there, it's not going to look like a double impression, but if it looks like a double impression, I'm hoping that I'm going to be coloring it with colored pencils, so hopefully the colored pencils will kind of straighten that out and kind of obscure the, those, the double impressions, or offset impression. This is an experiment, by the way. Anyone kind of logged in, this isn't like a how-to. If it works, it's a how-to. If it doesn't work, it was like I said, it wasn't done in the it was done in the name of stamping whatever science. Usually it's somewhere, a lot of things I try out, they might not work out kind of ideally or with the ideal resolution or process or whatever. I might have to muscle it and use a little bit more things, add more tones, or just kind of add things into the foreground to obscure things a little bit more, But so sometimes it's usually somewhere in between kind of my initial kind of hope and the final result. Okay, so this is where I start. Okay, now things are a little bit clunky right here. I'll show you what I've done here. See, that's my application of the white. It's not a graceful application at all, but it doesn't really need to be. So what I'm hopefully I can do now is I can add a little bit of a grace, the way that a cloud, would ideally be. So what I'm doing is I'm going up into this area right here now a little bit more, and adding kind of a thinner layer where like a cloud might have a little bit more transparency. You get a little bit of that tone and patterning showing through. Okay, so instead of just this hard, line like that, see, like that, it's kind of, I'm building it up like that, and I want to go for like more of that type of look in here than just straight opacity down here. Okay, and let's do it maybe around on the entire perimeter. Like there's this, maybe there'll be like a hole in the clouds or something like that, and that's where the light is coming through, or something of that sort. I'm thinking that maybe I'll use my cloud cumulus in here too. I might have to go for a couple different layers here, maybe like 3, as opposed to white, image, white, or white, image, white, image right over the top of it again. And I might have to, add in more pigment ink like that, and then, stamp again. So, I don't know, I'll try to get the sequencing down reasonably well here. If I can remember what I need to do with this concept that I'm coming up with on the fly. Okay. There's a lot of improvisation in these videos. Okay, so, all right. So let me think here. Okay, the things that are the most distant, okay, I will be stamping first. Okay, so if I go like this in here with these clouds, say the clouds are going to be behind the columns like that, okay? I can just leave it as just white clouds like that too, without the additional cloud cumulus. Maybe I'll do that instead. I'm trying to think that this is going to be a pretty busy, bold image in here. I think the cloud would be okay though, but I'm just not quite sure if I just want to. Because I would have to block out the columns again. You know what I mean? I guess I can mask them off too and just get that cloud in the background there. But let's just go with that. Let's go sans cloud. Okay, image cloud at least. Okay. It would provide a little bit more structure for this opening though if I did that. Um, oh yeah, I was going to stamp the quote in there, wasn't I? Okay, so I think we're ready for the imagery now. So let's see. So that figure is going to be right here. Okay, I'm going to be doing this in stays on. Okay, the stays on is going to dry very quickly, and I don't know. I tend to think that it's transferring and adhering a little bit better maybe than the dye-based black or like a Claire or something like that on here. But it's certainly going to dry fast though, right? Okay, now I should really mask this off right here so I don't. Okay. Let's see. Yeah, this is gonna be a little bit thick. I should really do this before, but okay, let's go like this. Okay, that'll be enough here for my mask. I need to re-ink my stamp here again, but see her feet are going like a little bit over here, and then her head's over here, so I could stamp it right over the top of it, but then I'd have to block that area off again with some more white pigment ink. Let's see if we can just avoid, an extra step here. Okay, and I stamped her a little bit high before. I'm gonna stamp her a little bit lower. I think my mask is a little bit too big for that, but colored pencils, additional pigment ink to fix that later. Oh, stays on stick. Oh, I really went low on that one. Okay, so that is where that's going there. That column is going to be right in front there. Let's go with a little bit more pigment ink on that column here. That column, when this pigment ink dries, it gets a little bit more transparent, so you have to add a little bit more than what you think is ideal, I guess, on this surface too. I didn't think you had to do that so much on this one. As much as on like a cardstock or something of that sort, but apparently we do. Okay, I'm putting some over my figure right here too, because I'm going to have this kind of figure in a little bit of a cloudy kind of background here. So let's get rid of some of that higher impression of that first impression. Can anyone say misty? Okay, I'm obscuring it enough here. All right. It looks like a ghost impression or something like that. All right, so getting rid of that little kind of bit up there, if you can see it. Okay, I don't know, it just looks like another part of her figure now. All right, so, oh my gosh. I haven't been stamping like every other day lately. So, and then I haven't been doing like careful positioning where I can just eyeball everything. That would make things a little bit better, but hey, when you got to try something out, you just got to try something out right then and there, right? Okay, so I need like a flashlight right here so I can see that line from that first impression. Okay. All right, now I need to be careful with this as I peel this off. I forget. Every time I use StazOn, I kind of forget about that adhesion. Oh, look at that. You know, look how perfect that is. See, you don't need a Misty. Okay, let's see. Experiments are good. That's when you need a stamp positioner. Sometimes I feel like I need a stamp positioner when I'm going in with like a word stamp on foil, especially. And especially when it's like the word stamps, like the very last thing that I'm going to be stamping. There's a little bit of a nerve-wracking kind of a feeling. Because I'm usually doing this on a live stream or something like that, you know, and in many ways I don't care about it. But, you know, when you get eyes on you, it's a consideration or whatnot. Okay, so this one right here, let's see. This one, I can go a little, well, let's see. Not only am I going up and down, but I'm positioning from left to right. Okay. I'm wondering if I designed this stamp around the half-page card, because that's the length of this. I used to think about all that type of stuff when I was designing the Greco-Roman series, because everything had to fit, you know, unlike, you know, the nature stuff where things don't have to fit at all, okay? Because you just place them wherever you want. But this one right here, this entire series took a ton of thought when doing it. It was a big headache because I just did a bunch of images first, and for Stamp of the Hand Company, I designed these for Stamp of the Hand Company, and then there were a bunch of different components, and then when she said, well, hey, do you want to come up with an entire line like you did with the nature stuff? So, you know, a couple years after the first images, I expanded on it, but I wasn't thinking modular at the time. It was more like isolated impressions. So I had to come up with all the measurements and everything like that and the relations between all these different things, like after the fact, you know? And yeah, it wasn't easy on my little brain. Okay, here we go. I think this one might be a little bit less than vertical here. I'm not sure. Yeah, that one, yeah, see, that's right there. So I'm going to obscure that in a cloud. And colored pencil. Okay, but not too bad, you know? Okay, let's see. All right. Does anyone know Maxfield Parrish, the illustrator? I'm kind of going for not something that looks like his pieces, but it's something in that spirit, you know, of these reclining people or whatever. This one's like an actual, like a 19th century engraving of a sculpture, but I'm going for that kind of spirit in this piece right here. Something that hopefully looks kind of, you know, a little bit dreamy and whatnot. Okay, so we have all this imagery done. The white pigment ink dries really fast, and of course we know that, you know, StazOn dries really fast. So, let's see, let's grab some colored pencils. I'm using my Prismas here. Coloring, not really printable vinyl, but coloring Brilliance ink that's been applied to the printable vinyl, okay, can be done with these colored pencils and hard media like this. I always mention this in my vids, but to me, the consistency of this Brilliance ink on here, it reminds me a little bit of like a copy paper, like a cheap copy paper or something like that, that I'm coloring with the colored pencils, okay? Because this, like I said, this is adhered really well on there and firmly enough to accept that different ink. Okay, let me go around here too. I'm going to obscure these little, they almost look like non-reproduction blue lines. They're just that light blue. Maybe I should have stamped out my imagery in a little bit of a lighter color, but I felt that if I stamped it out in too much of a lighter blue, we might not have been able to see it on there. All right, so adding this in, yeah, that seems to take care of it. So see, that's where that cloud kind of coming in here from the perimeter like that. If you add a little bit more on there, it just looks like, you know, more of that cloud or lighting coming into the scene. Okay, and I think that should be enough right there. Okay. All right, so here's a range of blue tones like this. I think that'll be good on that marble, for marble texturing and whatnot. I don't need all of these. I'm just grabbing them of the colors that I might want to use on here. Maybe a little bit of a, oh, what is this one right here? This is sepia, something like that. I don't know, use whatever you want. Here's a brown or something like that. Okay. But there is kind of a, I don't know, there's already kind of a, well, there's all kinds of colors within that space right there, but there is a kind of a bluish tinge to this when it isn't, you know, reflecting that light in there like that. So I think that kind of relates to this area in here. And let's see, let's start off with, I'll work light to dark with these colored pencils like this, okay? Now what I'm going to be doing here is I'm going to be adding in some shading on the perimeter right here. So we'll try to keep this as the kind of the center of light like this. No offense, this guy's acting like Richard from The Amazing World of Gumball when he reviews the calculator. I don't know what that's referring to, but we watched a lot of Amazing World of Gumball, so I wouldn't take offense to that. But thanks for checking it out. If you're an Amazing World of Gumball fan. Okay, so adding this in, and if you're ever kind of curious about where to add your shading and light, there are specific areas in these images that are darker than others, okay? There's shadow areas like that. So what you're doing is you're just kind of reiterating your shaded areas like this. Now, if there's specifics, like if I had lighting coming from right to left in here like this, then you just shade the right side of the columns and leave the left sides illuminated, okay? So it just depends on where your kind of directional light you want to do in here. If it's from center lit, then we have our shading on the perimeters like this, okay? I like to have, a lot of times I like to have my lighting coming from a more center lit type of formatting here. Just because it kind of there's a containment to it, and then I can put other things on the perimeter like that that would kind of frame it off, and it centralizes the viewer's kind of focus within the scene, okay? It's really easy to tell the shaded areas of your figures like this too, because they're already kind of in shadow and light. So you can go in there and color in even the black areas, okay? Like about like so, because you can add a richness to those darker areas like that. So it's not just black, it's a cool black, or it's a much richer shadow area. And a lot of times the richest colors, the brightest colors are in your shadow areas in real life anyways, because it's not being washed out by a lot of light, okay? All right, so we'll do this reasonably fast with this first color. You don't have to go on with a full super dark saturation either. Kind of add a lighter tone down at first so that you can see kind of what your lighting is looking like at any given point in time. So kind of hold your pieces out at arm's distance, really is the best kind of advice I would give to you. Because when we do add little things like this shading right here, you're focusing on one little maybe square inch at a time or something of that sort. So work on the macro or the micro, but have a good fix on the macro too. All right, so you kind of see that. And then adding kind of a thicker application of colored pencils too gives us a darker value to that as well. So be aware of that. But like I said, this is kind of like the consistency of like a, copy paper or something like that. So not a high quality surface for adding things like colored pencils into your scene. And if we do want to move through, additional layers, you don't want to give too thick of an application with your first color. So you want to allow, you want to retain some of the tooth that Brilliance ink provided for those other colors to come. Not every colored pencil that I've used, like even within my own colored pencil kit here, works on this. I found some of my colors are a little bit too they're too hard in consistency to easily apply on this white Brilliance ink. Okay, so not everything is going to work. If you have a set that's like really hard colored pencils, if you have some watercolor pencils, you can try that. Sometimes I heard the watercolor pencils are a little bit softer that you can use for colored pencils. Okay. All right. So that is that. You can get as detailed as you want to. Like there's these kind of ribs in this column here that you can go down like this. Now I'm thinking about the alcohol inks on here. The alcohol inks the usage of alcohol inks might be kind of interesting over the top of the wax applied colored pencil work. So you're not working directly onto the Brilliance, but you're applying it over the top of the colored pencils. Again, not the ideal surface for to be used on there, or something like that. But I would think that the alcohol inks would kind of stain and influence what we see in terms of the coloring, of the straight colored pencils there. All right, so can you see that the general kind of lighting scheme starting to develop here? We'll go for a little bit of shading underneath each one of these steps here. All right. With our figure here. Now, what color do you move on to? I just kind of line. Again, I'm not going to go through all these because it's it won't even matter. But I kind of line them up going from light to dark like that. All right, that's with any kind of inks too. So keep that in mind if you're using dye-based inks and coloring like that. Just line them up from light to dark and just apply those in order like that. Okay, this is more of a grayish blue, so we'll get rid of some of that kind of that sky bluish tone here. Colored pencils aren't necessarily transparent. but I find them kind of a little bit more transparent than opaque, okay, in that scale. So you do get the colors showing through that top layer of applied media. Okay. This second tone, I'm roughly applying it in the same areas that I did with the first one. As it gets darker and darker, I get a little bit more selective with the colors, the amount of application at least. Okay, let's see. I'm looking to see where I signed this, or where I hid my initials in this, these marble steps here. It might have been over here, I'm not sure. I didn't make it, like I said, I didn't make it real obvious. But I do little things like that to amuse myself after kind of hours of like planning and adding in like a, you know, whatever, 500, 1,000, 2,000 little stippling dots into the imagery. I don't do that on the nature stuff, but I did it on the columns because it just, you know, there's a lot of that type of patterning in with this type of imagery, you know, to make it look like marble. All right, so there is that. Let's go to kind of more of a royal blue. Let's see, Copenhagen blue. Let's go for a little bit more of the darker areas on here, right in the ribs in here. What you're doing by this type of thing is you're rendering your imagery. You know, you're kind of developing the forms into more of a kind of a three-dimensional looking object, you know, within a two-dimensional surface right here. So you see that, right? Kind of, you know, the difference between these two right here. So this is where it really starts to come together when you start getting into your slightly darker tones, you know, where that shadow and light gets a little bit more developed, you know, because you have more contrast in there. Hello, Phyllis. All right. I had an old stamping friend of mine from the early or the mid 90s, okay? She started the Huntington Beach Stamp Club, or was one of them that did. I think it was her though, and I haven't heard from her in years. But you know, with the magic of you know, Facebook and everything like that, where you friend people and whatnot, she got in touch with me. She said she has been stamping in it, you know, for a while. Her husband passed away a few years ago or whatnot, and she was asking me about a lot of her pads were dry. So she was asking me, you know, what markers are you using these days, and pads and inks and so on and so forth. So I just let her know, you know, the things that I use. And does anyone remember? Vivid ink pads? These by Clear Snap. Gosh, this isn't. It doesn't even say Clear. Or maybe it does say Clear Snap on it, but printed. Yeah, it does. Okay, it's printed into the case right here. But she is asking me if Vivid pads. She says you know, Vivid pads might have been like discontinued or not around or something like that, with a question mark. And I told her, I said, hey, Vivid pads, I don't think they've been around for 20 years. I think they were, discontinued like way back, way back when. They might have been discontinued by, I don't know, like 2000 or something like that. But these pads, I was recommending some of these types of pads. I think, does anyone here use Catherine Pooler stamp pads? And if you do, can you confirm to me whether they use that foam type of fabric material on them as opposed to the fabric style of pad? Because I think it looked like when I was looking at a photograph of one of those Pooler pads from that someone emailed to me, I said, is that? But I couldn't remember what they said. I asked them what the material of the pad was because I really like these pads. I mean, I haven't been using these brilliant Vivid inks because they've been discontinued for so long. I don't want to use something that's discontinued for 20 years, and people want to, find, and use it or, replicate something that I'm doing. So I just don't use them. But I haven't used these things, but you can see that thing is still like, it's almost like brand new juicy. And there is like, this pad has not, broken down whatsoever. And I just keep these on my shelf too. It's not even like they're stored in like a Ziploc, airtight bag either or something like that. Okay, so adding in that right there, we're getting a little bit farther with the kind of the rendering of this right here. I'm going to stamp in some kind of foreground foliage in here later, so I'm not really worried about this perimeter area. Okay, let's see. Okay. There's a lot of area to color on here. All right, well, let's see. All right. Getting a little bit more established there. Let's go to black here, okay? All right, so no one, okay, let's see. CM Hawkins uses the Vivid pad still. Uh, did the Vivid pads come with the re-inkers or something like that? I'm guessing so if you are still using yours. Okay, here's my question for you. If you're still using them, well, obviously, have any of your pads kind of broken down that, you know what I mean, from continual usage, that would be over like 2 decades then. I'm curious about that. Like I said, mine are fairly fresh, but I'm still surprised that they haven't broken down a little bit on me. Just from, age or whatnot. But I mean, look at that. That ink on there, you know, I would imagine it's almost like it's been re-inked and like almost brand new. I'm sure they were juicier than that when I just bought them and hadn't opened them, but it sure seems like they haven't changed very much. A lot of people had Vivid inks when they first came out because I think they were, if I'm not mistaken, I thought they were the first raised dye-based pads out there on the market. But then I don't know. They, ClearSnap made a lot of different things. The pigment inks, the ClearSnap, um, color box inks, the pedal pads and everything like that. So, and then other types of ink companies came out that were promoted, and like soon um, they suddenly, those Vivid pads suddenly became like the old pad or something like that. You know what I mean? They had only been out like a few years, but they were, everyone wanted to get the new thing. So they just, I don't know, they discontinued them a long time ago. But they had a really great selection of colors too. Maybe the most kind of extensive range of blue tones that has ever been out there too, which was good for me because, doing nature types of scenery, of course, I use a lot of blue tones. So it was really too bad. Let's see. Nicole hasn't used her columns for ages. I wish I knew what packaging. Yeah. I couldn't find these two images here. I mean, I used them here, but I used my, stamp in the hand versions, which are the same size as the Stampscapes ones. But I couldn't find them either because it's been a while. But now these figures, I mean, they don't have to be used with the columns, but I thought it would be, perfect opportunity to use, especially like this figurine right here. Always liked this figure was it's a copyright free image that was used by the Moon Rose company. And that company's still around, but I don't know. They discontinued that image like years ago. I was trying to find out if they can re-release it, because I've used it over the years, over the past 10 years, a couple times, and once in a while people ask about it. So it's like really trying to, figure it out. And I don't know, people ask them, I think, too, but I don't know that because it would be if they had the plate of it, it would be easy enough. Even if someone's discontinued the image, if they still have the plate, maybe the mold broke or something like that, or maybe they didn't have the plate anymore or something. I'm not sure, but I don't know. We couldn't get it, but I always liked it used with these columns right here. I thought it was the perfect kind of pairing of them, the images. All right, so okay. Well, let's see. I think I might want to let's add a tinge of a different hue into this. Maybe some pink or something like that. Kind of blended together in some areas. It'll give it a little bit more of a violet look. And are a lot of violet tones within that sky here, or that little opening in the sky. So I like to have some of those same tones on my objects within the landscape that are reflecting that light, coming from the light source. I think it kind of makes a stronger relation between your reflected light and the light source itself. Okay, so see, yeah, so the reinkers did have reinkers, or yeah, the Vivids had reinkers like that. Hmm, interesting. I wonder if there's anyone out there that still has some of those reinkers because the inks were really good too. They're super saturated. They're almost I would say they equal the Marvy inks in terms of color saturation and brightness. And not many inks do, um, with that type of intensity. I'll have to check if anyone's selling some of those re-inkers out there still. You know, once in a while you'll find like some old types of products on eBay or something like that that you can still, um, you know, get your hands on. There's someone in the Facebook group, I think it is, that there's a like a thrift store somewhere near them, but what they feature are um, it's like all crafting supplies. So it looks like they've bought out or liquidated. Like, you know, there's been a lot of stores that were around and are gone. And I have the feeling they might have picked up, you know, the I don't know, whatever liquidation sales of some stores because there are like tons of like brand new pads and re-inkers. There was what is it, the seashell, you know, inkers from Ranger that have been like discontinued for like 10 years, but she was posting some photographs of that store. And I said, hey, there's, you know, I can recognize a lot of these things that have been like long since gone. And but there's not just like one bottle, there's like a whole like shelf full of them, you know, like different colors and whatnot. I mean, a place like that would probably do reasonably, you know, pretty well if they kind of, you know, offered all those things online as well as, you know, in person at their store because, you know, if someone's looking around for those kind of obscure things like that, you know, you're marketing it to the entire whatever online space as opposed to whoever's going to be walking into the shop and you know that probably doesn't even know that you know a lot of that stuff because it's been you know gone for so long. Oh wait, okay, well yeah, okay. Sam says on eBay had some last year. Yeah, okay. eBay. I've seen stuff like that on let's see, eBay and Etsy. Yeah, Etsy sometimes. So that's kind of interesting. All right, so that is some coloring there. And let's see, I might have to make this video into a two-part. I just looked at the time. The wife and kid are not back yet, so I'll do this until they walk through the door, and it's like, okay, I gotta run here. But let's start adding in some foreground here. And then what I still need to do is I need to come in here and add in things like highlights and stuff like that. We need to make it look more dimensional. Maybe I'll use some of this. Maybe I'll use my I can't use this with the stays on though. I wanted to use my Art Foamies stamp because it's a little bit larger in scale. But let's add some, I don't know, some nature around this, things like this. And areas where it gets a little bit teetery and stuff like that, I can hopefully obscure it pretty good with some foliage around in here. So it's like a little, you know, garden or something like that, formal garden, you know, where you have trees and stuff like that. Maybe that's the centerpiece of the garden or whatnot. And then we'll get a quote stamped in here either tonight or later on in another stream. Okay. Okay, so Stays on Ink is going to adhere to, it would have no problem adhering, of course, to Brilliance ink, but I've laid down some pretty thick saturations, you know, like several layers of wax, you know, with the, you know, wax colored pencils. So the Stays on Ink has no problem adhering to that. Where if I stamped out, you know, something in like these foreground elements in like a dye-based ink, it probably wouldn't adhere very well to that colored pencil, especially if applied reasonably thick, okay? Okay, so I'm going in with the leaves image, and I'll come into it at various distances here. Think about like so. There's a couple little faces on this structure here, so I don't want to obscure those faces too much, because it's a, you know, a nice little feature of that. I just heard a car pull up. Let me try to get all this. Let me try to get all the foreground in here first. And let's see. I think that's all I'll do. Maybe come in like this with the overhang. Like about like so. Okay. So we're framing it off a little bit at the top. And let's frame off some off the lower portion too. Where's my reeds? Okay, here we go. Come in with this. And we're going to anchor this lower portion off with, and it adds a little softening to all these hard angles of our architectural elements too. Okay, so a little bit of an overgrown garden like that. And that is that. Okay, let's see. The petal pads go mushy. Oh, yeah, with the pigment inks on there, yeah. Okay, so we've given a little bit more depth. We'll anchor this area out in the center with some quote. I'll figure out the quote too, and what I'll do is I'll mount this on this piece, on another piece or whatnot. And then we'll finish this piece off. There's not too much left to do. I mean, there's a lot of refinements, that I think will bring this piece together. Plus, I need to kind of bring in the highlighting and whatnot in this form right here. There's a little bit of space right in here, but that's, again, see, I didn't mask off super carefully at all. But that's where you just come in like this, right? If you're going to be using colored pencil like that, that's where my mask went. And you just fill in that space like that. It makes it really easy like that. So again, we don't have to do a lot of careful masking and whatnot because we're going to be filling in all this area. That little area up top like that, that space in here, you can just add a little bit of shadow like this to connect that area over. Like about like this. So I'm adding, and then I have this space underneath these columns kind of coming into contact with the marble stairway like that. So I'm just going in here and filling that area in, and then we might do a little bit of a vignette around the perimeter like that too, and focus more of that lighting kind of in the center like that. So I'll finish that off the next time, but so that's our foundation right there. I think if anything, I would stamp out my imagery in a lighter shade. I think it would show up on this particular kind of more sandy, glittery type of holographic vinyl. On something like this, you'd have to go reasonably dark, if you're going to do this type of process where you stamp something out and then block it out and then re-stamp it over the top of it, just because it is so loud with so much more contrast in there. Okay, so someone asked, okay, where is that store? I don't know where the store was. I'm trying to remember who it was on that on the Stampscapes Facebook group. But the photographs are still up there. I don't know if she mentioned it. I want to say the Midwest somewhere, but I'm not sure. But there was a ton of stuff, and from what I recall, it was it was like it wasn't going for nothing, but it was like thrift store prices, So really interesting, and I was thinking, my gosh, if that's like the concept for the entire store, they're, like 90, I don't know whatever it is, 95% of all the independently owned retail stores are just gone now. So a lot of that stuff, they had sales and whatnot, and they were probably in an area where there used to be a lot of stores, densely packed, both stamping and scrapbooking. They're just gone now. Hello in Maine, Marta, good to see you. I don't have sales. I generally try to keep things as low as possible, and that's my sale there. I do recognize that people like sales, so you know what I mean? I could raise my prices by like 20% and have like a 20% off sale, which really would be good. But the profit margin on stamps is so low. And then rubber and shipping and everything like that over this last year went up by 30% minimum. And that's just one component of the stamps, not to mention the engravings, the molds, and shipping. But I didn't raise my prices. I've raised my prices once since 1994, and it's probably been about 15 years. And needless to say, everything's gone up in that meantime. So I just try, my policy is just keeping it as low as possible, you know, in order to operate. And sometimes it gets a little sketchy. Sometimes, you know, it's like, man, you know, you got to get new plates and whatever. And if you're buying, I don't know, 8 new plates, it's like $1,000 before you even get to the mold process. So we just try to keep, the margins at what I think is, the minimum in order to operate. So that's my policy, but I do recognize that having that, coupon code is fun. I look for it myself and whatnot. So, but I don't know. I'm like Trader Joe's. We just try to keep as low a prices as possible. I get it though. Those aren't fun, as fun. But when I do go to like Trader Joe's, I just know that, for that one product, in theory, they're giving me as good a price as I want, so I can shop with confidence. And I think my images too are pretty well in line with the prices of similarly sized images from other companies. But I'm telling you, I look at a lot of stuff out there, and one of my designs, I've spent like months drawing some designs, and I look at some designs, and I love, other stuff out there. I'm not talking about everyone, but some of the stuff I think I could have drawn that in like 20 minutes, and it looks more like a kind of a foundation drawing to me that without texturing and, negative space and all that stuff. So, I don't know. I keep it as low as possible though. All right, folks, I got to run. Stay tuned. Hope to see you on step 2, and that'll give me time to kind of look at this too and evaluate, some additional tones. And I think I'm going to add in a little bit more, maybe a greenish tone or something like that in here, kind of make the marble look a little bit weathered and whatnot. And I'll take a look at this interior in here. And maybe I'll reevaluate that cloud cumulus in there. I think that cloud cumulus can look pretty cool in there in terms of an additional kind of soft, billowy texture right within these clouds right here. So we'll really spruce this up and come up with kind of a good solution for that. Anyway, thanks for checking it out for this live impromptu stream and whatnot. Thanks, Nicole. Have a great rest of, what time is it for you guys? Have a great rest of afternoon for you and whatnot. And for a lot of the rest of us, have a great rest of evening. Oh, it's the early morning for some of you if you're on Eastern Standard Time. So, yeah. All right. See you on part 2. See you in part 2, and I'll see you back here in 3 hours, everyone. Just kidding. It'll probably be tomorrow or something like that.